Today's video is a tutorial on how to make fabric labels. So these are like this. Oh, and my mirror camera worked amazing, so it's not backwards for you. So it says you look really pretty on this side, and on the side it says, once you flip it up, it says carrying with this bag on your arm, and then the name of my company. All right. So there's two options, a sewn in label and an iron on label. We'll be talking about that. And this version, you put a backing on it. It's shiny and sticky. Where's my camera? And then you iron this into place. And it looks amazing. So this can be done on any kind of fabric that you want. Works best with cotton and satin. We're going to be using a special ingredient. Everything else you'll probably find around your house. This is another idea of how it looks when it's put into place. You'll need some basic things. I'll go over those in a second. And then you also need to have a file set up. So you can do it in Publisher, kind of following the tutorial that I gave you for the leather bag tags. Or you can buy a file. So I was poking around on Etsy and some other places like designbundles.net. They already have pre-made, handmade label art. So you would just stick that in there and create your labels. I am going to show you really quick kind of a method or a formula for those labels. And so give me just a second and I'll get the computer fired up and we'll get into the computer part. The good news is that for this project, most of what we need can be found around the house. There's only one special ingredient that you're probably going to need to order, and I get mine from Amazon, and that is this. It's Bubble Jet Set 2000. And this is a product which creates a permanent bond between the ink from your inkjet printer and your cotton or satin fabric. I've used this for masks, for printing custom fabric for masks, and you can use it to print anything onto fabric. It doesn't have to be for labels, and we're going to visit some of those projects later on a different day. The rest of the stuff you should have probably at home. So you'll need a container for the Bubble Jet Set 2000 and to soak your cloth. I use this tote here and I just keep the Bubble Jet Set in there, and so it's ready to go next time I want to treat some fabric. Of course, you need to have some fabric, and I have some soaking right now. You can use any kind of fabric that you want, but a lighter color or a neutral base is better for this. You'll need gloves because you'll be handling that Bubble Jet Set 2000, and the instructions recommend gloves. You need a measuring device and a cutting device of your choice, a hanger so that you can hang your fabric as it dries, and then I just have these little clothespins. You'll need some regular copy paper in whichever size you would prefer to use. So I know some countries use something other than 8.5 by 11. As a tip, if you have 8.5 by 14, set up your labels that way so that you can get as many done at once as possible. Today I'm going to be using 8.5 by 11. And then you need basting adhesive spray or something to get your fabric that's treated to stick to your paper, because this copy paper is going to be used as a carrier sheet. You also need liquid fabric softener and a container to put the liquid fabric softener in. And you'll also need a little bit of water. And what this does is that after we've printed on our pre-treated fabric, this is the final step in setting that ink. I get this at Dollar Tree, so it's $1, and this works great. It is strongly scented, so if you're opposed to strong scents, I would recommend that maybe you would want to use something different. I find the scent pleasant, but I know some people don't. And then of course you'll need an inkjet printer together with the toner cartridges that are full. All right, so I already have some fabric soaking in this solution, and I'm just going to wring it out. It's been in here for 5 minutes. I like to try to preserve as much of the liquid as possible so that I have it for future projects. So I just need to uncrumple this. And I've cut this larger than 8.5 by 11. It's more like 9.5 by 12. And that's because I'm going to need to go in afterwards and cut off these frayed edges so that these don't get caught in the wheels of my printer. So we'll be cutting this down to size after it has dried. Simply need to stick it on a hanger I have chased mine around the backyard several times, so I'm now, because the wind blows it off, so now I've started just adding little clothespins to keep it in place. Not rocket science, super easy. Okay, so now this will probably only take about 15 minutes to dry out in the sun, and then we'll be ready to iron it and go on to the next steps. All right, so our fabric has finished drying and it's ready to print. The only thing is that we need to make it so that it can go through our inkjet printer. To do that, we're just going to use a piece of standard size paper, and we're going to coat this with the basting spray and use that as carrier shape. So I'm just going to stick this. I have this little box that I use for this purpose. It's always where I spray things. We're not using permanent adhesive spray like the Lite that we used for the leather tags. Instead, this is just basting spray. Okay, so we are going to put this on the wrong side of our treated fabric. And my treated fabric is a tad bit larger on all sides than my paper so that I can get nice clean edges and trim them down. Smoothing, making sure it's smooth on the front side, and it is. And now I'm just going to go along all four sides and clean it up, not cutting into the paper. This way we don't have to worry about damaging our printer. I once got very excited during the early days of the cork phase and sent a piece of cork through my brand new printer and ended up with little tiny cork confetti all over the inside. I said some words that day. All right. Okay, there we have it. We now have a piece of fabric paper and it is ready to go through our printer. Okay, so we're going to use Publisher, which I love, and I have two prior videos which touch on Publisher. One glosses over it pretty quick, and the other one goes into pretty in-depth detail about how you use Publisher. So I'm going to refer you to that one in the comments. I'll have a link to it, or in the description rather. Essentially, we need to do a little bit of math for these folded labels. If you're using the label that we're treating as an iron-on patch by applying the bond to the back, you don't need to worry about any kind of math. You just make that label as big or as small as you want it to be, add a simple box to the outside to use as a cutting guide, cut them with pinking shears, these are ready to go. The ones that are like this, and let me stop sharing really quick so that you can see more of what I'm showing you. The ones that are like this, we are changing those, or we're constructing them so that all the raw edges are hidden and sewn into the center. So the way that we need to calculate that is that we need some area to fold on each side. So this is a 1/2 inch on each side. And then when we fold it like this, we need about 5/8 of an inch up here so that this can get captured in our seam allowance. Okay. That's how I came up with this little formula. Let me resume my share again. Okay, so here we are. So 0.625 on top, 0.625 on the bottom, and 0.5 on left and right. You just add those measurements to whichever size label you want to make. There's no right or wrong. You can make these tiny or you can make them big. That's just the formula. This sheet here, I have made all the same label. I'm going to turn off my boundaries so that you can see them kind of plain. I have created a box that will print in gray. I want it to be faint so that it doesn't bleed through or show through when I do the folding. I'm going to send it to my printer by saying File, Print. I want to make sure that I'm saying print the current page rather than all of them, because I only want to ever print one page at a time. So print the current page, and then I need to make sure that it's on one page per sheet, not tiled. If it's tiled, it's going to do this. It's going to break it across, and that's not good. Okay. So there is a purpose for that, but not with what we're doing. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and send it to the printer, and let's see what comes out. Okay, so this one has been through the printer, and I'm just going to peel off this transfer page. And you can go ahead and apply a little bit more of the basting spray to this and apply your next sheet of fabric, and it will go through just fine. Let's set this aside. Here is our printed label, and if you look closely, hopefully you'll be able to see it. It has printed those registration marks. And so now that we have seen it and it looks good and we're happy with it, we're going to go ahead and treat this in the fabric solution with the fabric softener. I just have a little bit of water placed in this bowl, and I didn't measure it, I'm sorry, because it really doesn't matter. It's just a bit of water to which we're going to add maybe a tablespoon or two of liquid fabric softener. It really doesn't matter how much fabric softener you use. I've never measured it and I've never had it fail. Okay, so we just need to swish that around with our hands, and I just still have my gloves on because of the prior steps. You don't need to have gloves on for fabric softener. And then you put your printed fabric here, and I would just let it sit for a minute. Give that fabric softener just a chance to kind of soak in. And while we're waiting, this stuff makes an amazing bug remover spray, which I'm not sure what it says for our fabric, but if you mix this with 1 part water and 1 part of this magical sauce and put it on your car grill or windshield, it takes the bugs right off. Just a little side tip for you. Okay, so now we're just gonna kind of rub this around and make sure it really gets into the fibers. And if you look close, you can see that the ink is not running at all. And like I said, I've used these for my masks and it's held up really well. I've not had a problem. Now this one, I did use a little pink heart to show you what color looks like. For whatever reason, color doesn't quite stay as vivid as the black and white. Something that you might want to keep in mind, but I really like how the black and white looks. Okay, so now we just need to take this, crumble it up again, and then repeat that drying process. You can rinse this if you'd like to, but you don't need to. It's up to you, whatever you prefer. Okay, so once this has had a chance to dry, I'm going to press it, and then we will be ready to cut it. Rather than making, 8 individual labels and folding them, we're going to do it a little bit in more of a streamlined approach. The first thing I need to do is to cut them down the center, and you may not be able to see it on the video, but there is that very faint gray line going down the center here. So I'm cutting along that. And now I'm going to fold them all. So, and actually I need to cut the top and the bottom gray line off as well. Give me just a second to get that done for you. And here. Forgive all the fabric marker marks on my mat. Suppose I should invest in one that's more camera ready. Okay, so then here are our fold lines. Right here, you can see. Looks like I have one more cut line to make on this side. And because these are, so small when they're finished, and because we're folding these raw edges in, it's not quite as critical to be super perfect with these as it is when we're sewing other things. So I'm just going to be folding it until I see that kind of dotted line here. Then I'm going to take this over to my ironing board and I'm going to give it a quick press to set that. I'll be right back. Okay, this is our roll of Heat and Bond Lite, and this is a sewable interfacing, fusible interfacing. I think it's called an interfacing. It's iron-on adhesive according to the label. So we're just lining it up here on the edges. Watch, try not to waste any of this. And then I'm going to simply cut to this size piece of paper. This is the same paper I used to send it through the printer. It has a tiny bit of adhesive grip left onto it. I'm just going to zip around the edges and come right back. This is the set that I demonstrated on the computer screen where they're all the same. Now, while I intend to have these as sewn in, it's okay if I add that Heat and Bond Lite to this sheet as well. This is just as it comes out of the printer. It's really easy to peel that transfer piece of paper that we put the basting spray on. It just comes right off. This is just residue left over from lots of use on this Teflon sheet. I'm using my heat and press, but that's you could use a regular household iron for this. The package directions are pretty instructive. I mean, they tell you exactly what to do. You just need to use medium heat and then only for 2 seconds. This is a Heat and Bond Lite, and you can do too much of a good thing. So I'm carefully arranging it so that the kind of textured side of the Heat and Bond product is against the back side or the wrong side of my labels. I'm going to put a piece of parchment paper on top so that it doesn't get any of this residue onto my heat press. It says 2 seconds, so I'm just going to do 1 1,000, 2 1,000. I'm going to move it. 1 1,000, 2 1,000. Have my iron set just under 300 degrees. And now that's it. And we just need to let it cool so that that adhesive has a chance to set up and bond with our fabric. Once it's cool, we're ready to continue. Not ultra. Now I'm just going to cut along that dashed interior line here for this one. I can certainly fold them if I'd like to, even if it has that adhesive on there. It's fine to fold it. I'll actually just give it a little bit more structure. But instead of using these as fold lines, I'm going to use them as cut lines. Okay, that's done. Now I'm going to peel off the backing. Give me just a second off camera to get that started. And if it happens to tear, mine did a little bit at the top there, just try to peel it from a different angle. Once we, I didn't get it quite adhered on this corner here, but once we put it onto our finished project, we will reactivate that glue and it will give it a chance to really bond tightly. Okay, so that's where theoretically I want to have my label. Set it there. Use that parchment sheet again. Move this out of the way. There we go. Press labels to my cutting mat. Leave it again for 2 seconds. I'm going to go, let's see, this one says once we put it on the adhesive, then we iron for 6 seconds. Okay, seems about good. And then it instructs us to turn it over and iron from the other side. Make sure we get that bond well established for 2 more seconds. And whatever, there are similar products as this bonding material, so be sure to read and follow the instructions that come with your product. Okay. So again, we would want to let this cool, and then once it cools, we can test the bond. But there you have it. I'm not sure if you can see that, but I did purposely use a fabric that had a white on white print to it. This is one of my favorites. I just love it. And you can see that none of that lettering smeared. and it won't smear even after you wash it. This is going to be perfect now. So it's still warm to the touch, but it's not coming up. There you have it. Okay, so what do you think of this one? Are we getting tired of labels? I kind of am. I have 2 more methods to show you, but I'm gonna pace those out a little bit. I think we have plenty to get us going with labels right now, and I have some other projects I'm really excited to show you. They include making gigantic signs for our booths, or maybe even just for the holidays that are coming up, using a Cricut. So the next one will be using Cricut. And we're talking like 36-inch wide signs that you're going to be able to make that are super fun. They're great for photo backdrops. I mean, you can use them for all kinds of things. So not just for bag makers, all kinds of crafters. Another thing I want to show you is making your own stickers. I don't know if you've taken a peek at stickers lately, but a lot of times when we're buying from custom fabric groups, sewing machine companies, they're throwing in these little swag stickers that are so adorable. I looked them up and they're sometimes $3.50 a piece on Etsy. We can make them for nothing almost using our Cricut maker. So again, we're going to use Cricut, although you can cut it out with scissors if you want. And then just a few other easy to source materials. I think I'm going to do that one next because I'm most excited about that one. Let's see. Printing on your own bags. Let me see if I can grab one real quick. So when I sell my masks and my products, I have these little bags. It includes the care instructions, and it also tells about the sizing. So I have different styles and sizes of masks. This is a style yay and a size 4. And so when the recipient gets this, they know both how to take care of it and what size they're getting. So I'm not sure if anybody would be interested in these or not, but I think I'm going to plan on showing you all how to do this with, again, you guessed it, Publisher, but not Cricut. So Publisher, an inkjet printer, and some bags that you can get at Hobby Lobby. I've always been super proud to send my products out in these, and they've been really well received. These would be perfect bags to fit things like wallets, little totes, all kinds of stuff. I put quite a few different kinds of products that I sell and make into these. So that will be an upcoming tutorial. And oh gosh, I have a list somewhere. I have a whole bunch of things in mind. If there's something that you want that I haven't mentioned and you would really find helpful, let me know in the comments and I will see what I can do. All right, I'll see you all soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.